Are there some key factors that you can highlight for our listeners that make an AI startup successful or that allow an AI startup to attract venture capital?
Yeah. I think especially in current times, and I mean, it sounds very simple, but I think showing like real customer traction and revenue is even more important. I think the times that you purely raise on research and like fancy demos is gone for the most part. So I think especially if you're an enterprise or SME, like showing real customers using and paying for your product, and I guess it became even more important because we see now a lot of VCs also being worried about like these so-called thin layers on ChatGPT kind of companies, where people are like, okay, is this a real company or will there be the customer just use ChatGPT in the future and that language model is powerful enough and if it has integrations can do the job. So I think the easiest way to circumvent this is actually showing, look, like no, he has a customer that pays like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars for the solution per year, and clearly more than the person would pay for a ChatGPT. And so there seems to be real value in this product because I don't know, maybe the language model is more fine tuned on some specific data, or it's like the whole product around it, or workflow solution, or other reasons why this is a standalone product. So I think that's something a lot of companies need to fight. And I guess a lot of VCs I've been also scared about as these horizontal platforms like the big cloud providers become bigger and bigger, invest a lot in AI, move very fast also, and try to catch a lot of this horizontal things. So I think we've been kind of generally more excited about like going into these deeper verticals where you solve a very specific problem in a deep space. We have a breast cancer screening company, we have a protein materials optimization company, and a computer vision company in the industrial space, like very specific applications, because that's something likely a cloud provider will not do. And but at the same time, obviously, market needs to be large enough. It needs to be you still build a platform, but in a vertical. Whereas I guess on the general like tooling layer, you can still do stuff, and I mean there are big companies there, but you also can be quite dangerous water there. And then I think related to that is also I guess the founder, like space fit, like do they have experience in that space? Um, show traction, but ultimately a lot of the concerns of investors you can kind of solve with like real revenue, real customer traction, I think. And people start to look at there's a lot of AI hype around it, but as now most companies use AI here and there, somehow every and no company is an AI company, and as such, also the same other metrics I think are often applied. Minus obviously like hype, and there's always FOMO and stuff about specific companies, but yeah.
Nice. Yeah, this idea about the verticals, I think, is a really interesting one and something that you at Merantix have been able to leverage to great effect because you can have different. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but my understanding of the situation over at Merantix is that you could have a machine vision company like Vara that is focused on breast cancer detection or these kind of radiology in hospital applications of machine vision, and then you can have another, which I think one of your big success stories, one of the companies that has already exited from the entire Merantix system, SciSearch, that they were doing machine vision as well, but they were for, if I remember correctly, it was about like annotating video from self-driving cars, this kind of thing. And so you have two machine vision startups, completely different verticals, but they can leverage each other's expertise, and maybe even some shared resources in order to be able to grow faster and make a bigger mark in their vertical. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think there's a lot of, I guess, like commonality around like, if they use the same data modality, like the companies that use LLMs versus, computer vision models, them exchanging on each other on the kind of technical side, general, I guess, best practices on ML ops, kind of infrastructure related things, but also like procurement processes. Right now, I mean, a lot of these enterprises are procuring LLMs for the first, second, or 10th time, but certainly at the beginning. And so, if you sell a big enterprise like an LLM solution, like what do they need to like? What boxes do they need to tick? Is there anything additional they check? A lot of big companies struggle with this, and so that's something that our companies can share best practices on about like how do you convince somebody in a procurement department that your LLM doesn't break any laws, and so I think these kind of meta level topics that are not specific and in that sense not pure competitive advantage for your specific company are then shared across our companies and also across the campus.
Yeah, it seems like there's even opportunities for companies to grow in the ecosystem itself that serve a lot of these different needs. So you specifically there talking about like security. We in episode number 736, when I was there in Berlin, I interviewed Jan Zawadzki, who his startup is focused specifically on AI certification. And so this is something that I think is particularly important in the EU because there is going to be some certification requirements coming down the pike very soon. But is something these kinds of certification ideas can be great regardless of whether there's regulations that require them or not, because it can show to consumers, prospective consumers, that your algorithm is safe, it can be trusted. And so it's interesting how the ecosystem supports these kinds of specialized companies, like something like that. Jan Zawadzki's company can be then certifying tons of different companies in your AI campus. So this ecosystem supports itself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in Jan's case, I mean, in Robert's case, like, with their company, there's probably like 100 customers on the campus for them, but also design partners they can iterate the product with. And when the new UAI Act came out, and like there was more about regulation, it was great to have them on campus and also see their perspective, as well as we have a couple of foundation model companies on the campus as well, see their perspective, see the application side. I think that's really cool. And that's like, we have a quick like 20-minute chat, we bring the right people together, we can do it like spontaneously, and then that's something otherwise would take much more time to set up, or you might not even do that. And I think that's where the community is really strong.